So I'm joined, sorry. I'm joined as per usual by Audrey Zeitoun, who is a divorce coach and who will start by introducing herself.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Sarah Jane, and lovely to be here with you. As Sarah Jane said, I'm a divorce coach. I am based in London, and I work with people navigating all stages of their divorce, whether it's before deciding to divorce or during the procedure, or also after their divorce to recover and rebuild their life. Yes, and Sarah Jane, do you want to say a few words about you?
Thank you, Audrey. So I'm Sarah Jane Tasteyre. I'm a French lawyer and I practice in Hong Kong and in England. And I assist French nationals in areas of international family law and more precisely with international divorces. And this is the reason why we are doing the webinar today. I've been working with Audrey for a while now. And I first got in touch with Audrey because I needed help in dealing with my clients for all those emotional issues that lawyers are unfortunately not equipped to deal with. We're trying, but it's not our job. So I got in touch with Audrey to get some tips and tools in order to facilitate the dealing with the emotional side of divorces. So one of the aspects is what we're talking about today, which is how to deal with special dates and holidays. So we're going to talk today about three main points, which are how to reach an agreement about holidays and special dates. How do you agree on the time, how to divide the time with the children? The second point, once you've agreed, is how do you organize those holidays? Because as we will see, it is not as easy as it seems to go on holiday for the first time with your children alone, or to be alone for your holidays. So this is the second point. And the third point is the situation where it's really a tense relationship with your ex and communication is really difficult. So how to navigate through, although it may be very difficult. So the first point will be how to reach an agreement. And I will give you my experience as a lawyer on how do we agree on dividing the time between each parent. What's very important is to always put your child first. What is important is not to have a really equal time divided between the parents, but more to be able to organize yourself so that it's in the interest of the child, so that even if you don't have exactly the same days, it may be easier to organize another way. So I encounter a lot of difficulties in that area, trying to first organize holidays, and then we also have to think about special days like birthdays, Christmas, which may be, in the middle of a holiday. And if you're not able to communicate with your ex, it can be a real hassle. So I know it seems obvious, but really the secret is communication, flexibility, and being able to compromise. You may be under the impression that you're always the one making the compromises or being flexible, but maybe that's the price to pay in order to reach an agreement and make sure that your child doesn't suffer emotionally, because he can sense the tension between the two parents. So most of the time, even when you seem to have an amicable divorce, you realize that the only point of friction will be dividing this time. And often people tell me, we want everything written down. Well, the problem is with writing everything down is at the end of the day, it may not be that easy to enforce. So I would always advise to write down the broad picture, and then to be able to be flexible and communicate so as to have an agreement that's enforceable. I know it's not easy for everybody. It's often very difficult, and people find it very unfair if they have an agreement and the other does not respect it. But keep in mind that the most important is your child. And if the other, your ex, doesn't bring the child right, at 8 o'clock and maybe at 8:30, and that it's very late because the next day they have school, maybe, it's worth just not saying anything in front of the child and maybe send an email later saying, could you please next time respect the time, because it's a bit, he's tired or she is tired the next morning. So it's little things like that in order to be able to move forward. What I also, even when you have an agreement, what I really advise is to be able to agree on a calendar for the whole school year before school starts in September. So make sure that not only you think about half term, Christmas, etc., but also their holidays, the children's holiday. If you're not able to meet up at the same day, maybe alternate the years. Bank holidays, also we tend to forget them if they're not in the school holiday. So really agree on all those important dates before school starts in September, and this will be a real help, as Audrey will explain in a minute. So what I would advise as a lawyer is really, when you see that the other one is not making any effort, just to take a step back and remember, what's your focus? What's your goal? If you're still in negotiating your divorce, remember that your first goal is to get a divorce whilst protecting your child. So, that's really important. If it's after the divorce, it's your child that's the most important. So you really, really need to breathe and just, try and, as I say, navigate, because you're trying, you've got obstacles, and it's not the other one who's going to make the effort. So you have no choice, unfortunately. So that's for the first point. I don't know if you have anything else to add, Audrey, or shall we move on to organizing the holiday?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah Jane. Yes, as you mentioned, it's very difficult, isn't it, to organize holidays as a co-parent, and especially if it's your first holiday as a single parent. It can be really emotionally difficult, not only for you, but your ex, and especially for the child or children involved. So it's important. It's like a grieving period, and it's important that you realize that and you be kind on yourself and take time to adjust to this new life and new organization. So the first thing I would say really is to plan ahead and plan maybe 3 months in advance the holiday, so you are not you know what's going to happen, you're organized, you know the dates, and for that you need to communicate as much as possible with your ex, especially if there are dates like special dates in your family, you want children for this special occasion, so that your ex know in advance that he is not going to have the children at that time, and that it's all agreed between you. So keep in mind, as Sarah Jane mentioned, always the interest of the child, at the heart of the decision. That's really important. to be flexible and keep their interests, at heart. As you mentioned, Sarah Jane, you return to school, for example, a few days in advance, return to their main residence a few days in advance before school starts, if it's possible. But sometimes it's not, in case of parents living very far away, or if you're expats and, there are many a long flight or jet lag, it may not always be possible to do that. So keep your personal circumstances, more than a general rule of things that need to be done because that's the way it is. Just make sure that you plan accordingly to your own family, and divide the holidays according to what works for the kids and not the calendar. I think Sarah Jane mentioned that. So, having high expectation about this, or not communicate, or communicate in an aggressive way. If you don't listen, or if you want to be right, it's not going to be much helpful for the children who are looking forward to these holidays. For them, it has to be a moment of joy and good memories. So always keep them, at the center of your decision, and not in the middle of your arguments. If I can put it that way, remember that. Just put them at the center. Yes, and as you mentioned, it's not always easy to make that decision, because you are maybe the one who is flexible, but you can only control what you can control, and if you can't control your ex actions, so control how you react to your ex, and then you will benefit your children. Yeah, so that's for the organization, more or less. Do you want us to talk about the parent the solo holiday?
There are two aspects. It's really about, reaching agreement, organizing your holiday with your children, and be able to organize your holidays alone. And that's really important to avoid any guilt for your children. That's what we've been discussing a lot about that. So those two aspects, can you give us, your tips? Because you're a divorce coach, but you also personally went through that. So you know exactly what you're talking about when you are giving us advice about organizing your first solo trip with your children after divorce.
Yes, Sarah Jane, as you mentioned, I have been through this with two young children, so I know what it is to be flexible and to negotiate and to go away on holiday. So as a parent, solo parent, so it's really important to again plan ahead, and it's important maybe to plan to go away with family or friends, or maybe you can go to a friend's place and stay with them for a few days, or some family members, because you may feel a bit lonely the first time you spend that time alone with your children. And it's, as I mentioned before, time to adjust is a long time. It takes time. So it can be just staying at home with your children. Maybe you're just going to plan day trips, maybe make a list with them of things they like to do. There are plenty of things that we have not been able to do for the past year. So maybe there are things they want to do, like visit to the zoo, or a trip to the museum, or any fun thing that they enjoy doing and that they haven't been able to do for so long. So involve them in the holiday planning as well. It could make it fun for you both to enjoy and to look forward to it. So yes, take that opportunity to go with friend or family, as I said, and avoid thinking about your divorce or about the divorce procedure during that time. Maybe take a break from the procedure and just spend that time to enjoy the time with your children. For my side, I went away with them, and in a holiday club, for example. At the time, it was my first holiday with them, and I was a solo parent. It was a bit daunting to start with, when you're alone in a hotel, but in the end, there are loads of solo parents out there, and I met another single mom and with her daughter, and we spent the holiday the whole week together. So I would say it's just about taking that leap, and you're going to meet people like you. You're not alone, and if you can't have friend or family, there are places where you'll be welcome to come as a solo parent.
What's important to state at this stage, Audrey, is really plan ahead. I think that's really, really important because when we talk about holidays, it seems something easy to do because it's fun, but in that situation, it may be difficult if you haven't planned ahead or, haven't visualized that the awkwardness of the situation.
Yes, totally. And also take that time to maybe create new traditions or new habits with your children. Maybe, the old family tradition at, during summer or Christmas can't be anymore, but maybe recreate something of your own that you decide with your children, a little tradition you can do together before the start of summer holidays or at Christmas or for a birthday. So own your holidays back. They're up to you now. It's up to you how you want to create them. You have that freedom.
And another interesting point to point out is you were saying, and it's the first holiday that it is important to set new grounds, new rules, is to stay within budget and not try to do better than the other one. I think that's can you talk a bit about that? Because I think it's very important to start from the beginning to explain to the children why there are differences between mommy and daddy or daddy and mommy.
Yes, the gift giving at Christmas and holiday, of course. As the parents, maybe with more means or more financial means, maybe it's important to keep it grounded so that the child doesn't compare both, situation, or at least to explain, in a nice way that mommy or daddy can take you in that nice trip, but it doesn't mean, anything, or doesn't mean that mommy or the other mom or dad doesn't love you. And also about gift giving, maybe not be too extravagant, even if you can financially, or agree with your ex. I mean, it's really the communication. That's what we talked about, is agreeing. If your ex is happy as well, then do the gift, that you wanted to do. And for example, if they live at their mom or dad and they don't want you to buy the latest device or computer, and you do anyway, this is not going to be a good ground to start, this new relationship as a co-parent. So it's important to respect the other's decisions and values as well, as much as your own.
Now, that's important. The word respect is something that's really important just in organizing the holiday. As we were saying, you really have to respect the other and not cancel holidays at the last minute. But we'll talk a bit more about that later. Now, what about holidays alone without your children? Because from my experience, the reason why we often have difficulties in organizing the sharing of time between parents is because one parent is a bit selfish and is afraid of being all alone. But it's very common, and we just need to realize the reasons behind in order to realize that the most important is that their children are happy. And can you tell us a little bit more about being alone without feeling alone, and how, again, to plan ahead?
Yes, there are two aspects of this. First is so leaving your children, with their other parents. So how to prepare the children as well, to tell them that they're going to have a good time. Maybe they don't live with the other parent as much as with you, and to remember that your ex loves your child or children as much as you do. I mean, we're not talking about high conflict situation, but most of the time the other parents love their children and they're happy to take them on holidays. So even if you're anxious, try not to show it in front of the child or criticize the other parent. I think it's important maybe to reassure the children, and maybe they can take little toys with them, or little objects, with them on the holidays, remind them of home. And also another point, letting them go happily, but when they come back, maybe be happy to listen to their adventure and let them share what happened when they were at their mum's or dad's, what they did, and maybe look at pictures together, and be happy for them that they had a good time. Even though you hurt inside, I know, because I've been there. So, it's, you deeply miss them, and it's totally normal, but, they're having a good time. That's what, is important. And you, as you're alone now, it's finally your time to rebuild, maybe recreate, again, new traditions, of a solo time just with you. What can you do that you couldn't do before, or what have you always wanted to do that you never had the time? So again, plan ahead. You're going to be alone maybe for a couple of weeks, maybe for full months. So plan ahead to go out with friends or family. Even if you're working during the day, plan your evening so you don't spend that time alone every evening, and you have some support around you. So think about what gives you joy at this time. What do you need now to feel better? And focus on what you can do, not what you can't do. So keep that positive attitude to think of new possibilities that are open to you now that you're single, you're a solo parent, and you don't have the children for so long. Sometimes it's nice to have a rest, to not worry about someone, or not to have to cook dinner, or just what can you do instead? Think about all this time. As a single mom, I was happy not to have to cook dinner, for a week or more at a time, and just to stay out if I needed to. I could go home a bit later. It didn't matter. So maybe write down all the positive about your situation. Yes, the more positive you will be, I wanted to add, the less conflict you will have with your ex, because you will feel better about yourself. You will feel more empowered, more able to decide what's good for you and what suits you now, and so you will be less bitter or less anxious about your new situation. And of course, there are professionals to help you, whether a therapist or anybody, of course a coach. But if you feel like you're really struggling, don't hesitate to reach out to the professional that feels more suited to you, because we can help. And it's important that you don't feel isolated and alone, especially if you don't have a big support network around you.
It's important. You often say that not showing your emotions to your children doesn't mean repressing the emotions, because that's worse than anything. You really need to reach out, and wherever you are, there are always, you can ring your GP or doctor, and they will always give you contacts to be able to talk to someone about what's bothering you, even if you don't really know what's bothering you. But when you don't know when you're not feeling yourself, you should not hesitate to talk to someone, and that's important. So we've talked about holidays in general. How about special dates? Because that's also a tricky one. We can talk about wedding anniversaries. We can talk about Valentine's Day, or just Christmas, or your birthday, or their birthday, because it can be difficult if you're not able to be in the same room as your ex. There's you shouldn't celebrate birthdays together, because it wouldn't be fair on your children. But how do you get over that and be able to spend a nice day, even though it brings back memories? It gets easier with the years.
Yes.
But the initial ones are quite difficult, aren't they, Audrey?
Yes, for wedding anniversaries or Valentine's, yes, it is a day, maybe again, to plan that day is not going to be an easy day. Maybe you're going to come back from work feeling really depressed and down, and Maybe it's the time to book a visit to a museum or book a massage, after work, or call a friend, or plan, a drink with some friends. So just plan ahead in advance so you are not lonely that day. And, then you just come home, you go to bed, and that's it. You've been through it, and you went through it. And as Sarah Jane said, it gets easier, definitely easier. And then, you will rebuild your life. You will maybe meet someone new, and you will forget, and you will rebuild new memories, after these ones. So it's important to keep those memories of your anniversaries, your Valentine, because they were part of your life. You can cherish them and say, well, now this time is finished, but I'm going to build new memories and new happy memories, whether I'm single or with someone else. That's
and
really
just
important.
remember that Valentine's Day is overrated anyway, because I know I'll have a lot of my clients who are a bit upset around that time, because you see it everywhere on telly and restaurants. Well, not this year because we were we were on lockdown, but just remember that people don't, it's only when you're single that you think about it. Otherwise, usually you don't really bother about Valentine's Day. But that was just a little joke.
That's true,
So
yes.
what about the last point that we wanted to talk about, dealing with conflicts? What I mean by that is sometimes the conflict is inevitable because the person you have in opposite you just you just wants conflict for whatever reason. Might be a controlling ex, or an ex who doesn't, makes promises to the children but never keep up with them. So, and mainly situations where they won't respect the agreement you had on dividing the time between the children. How can you deal with those situations, Audrey? I know you've touched upon it before. I would say, yeah, it's communication again. But when you can't communicate, what can you do?
Yes. First, I feel sorry if you are in this situation. I know it's not easy. So don't beat yourself up, and the parent who is, in conflict with you, maybe your ex, probably has a lot more problems to deal with, than just being married with you, or was, probably maybe he's in depression, or maybe he needs control, or maybe he has family issues or childhood issues. So there's a lot to it, and they demonstrate all their emotions by using anger, by contradicting you or not agreeing on what you say, and showing their frustrations. So the only one who can change your ex, unfortunately, is your ex. So you have to accept that you can't change his behavior, you can't change his attitude or his decisions, but you can change how you react to these. What you can control is how you react to this situation. If he doesn't want to tweak the holidays, for example, if he doesn't want to be more flexible, well, you can only, what can you do? How can you react so it doesn't damage the kids, and that it doesn't hurt you. At some point it's good to detach yourself from this, because he won't change. He has to do the work. You can do the work on yourself, and learn how to manage your emotions, manage your reactions, and maybe change your communication. But it's up to you. You can't change him. So I would say, when you can be flexible, when it doesn't impact on the children, be flexible, and when of course there's a big impact on the children, then be less flexible and be less accepting, if the impact on the kids is really great. So just try to assess what you can let go of emotionally and in your decisions. And focusing also on the problem and not the person. When you talk to your kids and you say, Mom or Dad, we didn't agree on the holidays, just say, well, next time we need to communicate better, not, oh, your dad or your mom never communicates or never arrange or never agree. Just focus on the problem when you speak about it to the children, so they don't.
No blame on the other.
No blame. no blame, no criticism. And often, it's about non-violent communication, which I use a lot in my coaching. It's about learning other ways to communicate so you can maybe get things that your ex didn't want to give to start with. So there are ways to communicate and reformulate your request and how you speak to your ex. But if you don't blame, don't criticize, but formulate requests already, or formulate that for you, it will feel much better. You will feel much more relieved if your ex, if he could agree or she could agree on tweaking the holiday this year. You will feel a lot better, and the children will feel much happier. Is a better way than saying you never tweak, or you never help, or you make it really difficult. So this is more into blaming. So try to reverse that and talk about more requesting. And be respectful, and as well, even if it's difficult.
It's very difficult because there are no miracle solutions for this situation. For those who thought that they would have a solution by listening to us, which we can just give you tools to try and make the situation easier. And I must admit, I'm a big fan of Audrey's tools with regards to communication. I have advised my clients to use them, and we've had, in many cases, an improvement in the communication just by changing the way we expressed ourselves, expressed our requests, not barking orders, but, making suggestions, for instance. So it's not easy. We really, it's a struggle when you're in a situation when the person you have opposite you, he or she, because it's in both cases, men or women, can be difficult in a divorce depending on the story behind. But you have to bear in mind that what's most important is your children's interest. This, wherever you are, whatever jurisdiction you're in, we will always look at what is best for the child. I think we've covered everything we wanted to cover. We had another question that was raised about what age for
a baby. Yes, can the dad take a baby? How long can a baby, be with his or her dad? Yes.
Yeah. So that's a very difficult questions to answer, because it's on a case-by-case basis. Nowadays, you can't say, no, a father can't look after a baby. It was maybe the case 30 or 40 years ago, but nowadays dads are really hands-on. So unless you have requirements like breastfeeding, which obviously makes it difficult for a dad to keep the baby too long, if I don't see what could, a child, whatever the age, his best interest is to see both parents. So it's really a tough one. And it's really on a case-by-case basis. That's what my answer would be. You cannot forbid a dad to take his baby for a few hours. If he's not breastfeeding, I don't see why the baby couldn't stay with the father as long as he has everything. Yeah, as long as he has everything in his house to look after the child, there's no, why not?
I know it's hard for the mother though to let go, because it's your baby. I understand, but if the baby's safe, as you said, Sarah Jane, if there's no, the dad knows, what to do and has everything, then yes.
I guess the earliest you do it, the easiest it will become. But I do understand that leaving your baby when he's very young is can be traumatic, really. I think you would need help to be able to live through that, without too much anxiety. But, it may be something you need to do. If you really believe that your child wouldn't be safe, then, you have to trust yourself also, but difficult one to answer. So I don't know if you have anything else to add, Audrey.
No, I think, I mean, the last word could be enjoy, that moment, whereas you are alone with your children or alone without your children. Remember that there's a life after this traumatic experience of a divorce. There's a light after the tunnel, and it will get easier. You will feel much better about yourself, and you will rebuild, confidence and self-esteem, which is often difficult in a divorce, and often the price to pay. But you will get there. So focus on the positive and rewrite your story in a positive way. Think about all the things that are positive now that you are not married anymore. Yes.
Well, thank you. Thank you again for your great advice, Audrey. It's always a pleasure. So I think we're going to wrap up this webinar. Next month's webinar will be on coaching for men. So if you want to join, you can register as usual, and we'll be live on Facebook like we were today. Thank you again. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact us directly. Thank you, Audrey.
Did you put the contact details in the chat? I can't remember.
No, no, but
they can contact us. I will send you the replay anyway, or
exactly.
so that's fine. Yes.
You will receive all our information anyway.
Yes. Thank you, Sarah Jane. Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure again, as usual.
Bye.
Bye.